Good evening to everybody. I hope you can hear me clearly. Just a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly. That will really help me. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Welcome to today's webinar session. And I know it's been 5 days of actually anticipating for this, and we're really grateful to have you guys on board. And welcome to this journey with Infospace. I think I'll start by making a short prayer, if you'd allow me. Mighty and everlasting Master, we thank you for this evening that you've given us. As we want to start this session, I pray that you may lead us, that you may move with us, even as we go over what's happening in our continent. That's my prayer, and it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So, as we all know that we are actually in a really blessed continent, a continent that is full of everything. That's from resources to very incredible human beings to good wildlife, and we have the capacity to actually uh, be at the top. And most times we are always asked, or rather, we ask ourselves that what's really happening in Africa? Why are we not there? Why are we not actually getting it right? Right? It's been 60 years across many countries when it comes to independence, but still we are still struggling with some few things here and there. But now we analyze the new world and we realize that there is a presented opportunity for us to actually elevate ourselves to the next level. What we're talking about is a blessing that we have. When you go to data and statistics, you realize that in 20 by 2030, 50% of the global workforce will be Africans, and that by 2075 projection says that the average age for Africa will be at 30. And now that gives us a kind of opportunity to actually transform a lot of things within the continent. And currently, we have technology swaying around. And this is a tool that we believe that we can actually leverage on so that we can make changes in the continent. And that's why we are here, and we're glad to have you on board, that we may get to tap into these African stories, that we may get into we may get into having the responsibility, the burden of the responsibility to actually change the continent through the opportunity of technology. And so I don't want to speak much, but I would really wish us to get on board, get our pens on, and start noting some few things as we welcome our speaker, Joe Karanja, who will take us through the topic of the day, Africa technology. Yeah, welcome, Kiongozi.
Thank you very much, team. I'm Joe Karanja. I'm a software engineer, and I head the engineering team at Lish AI. And I'm happy to be here and to share today's discussion. And today, mostly, we will cover a unique topic that maybe you've heard of it before, but we're going to approach it in a different perspective. Tech tailored for Africa is the topic that I shall be talking about today. And we all live in Kenya, for example, but came to realize that the problems that we experience in Kenya are the same problems that are experienced in Uganda, in Tanzania, in East Africa, in West Africa, and in South Africa. All the regions in Africa tend to experience the same problems. And then we shall be asking ourselves 6 questions today. And the first question is where we are. I'm going to dig deep and talk about where we are. Most of us already understand, since we already live in Africa and we know the situations that we are at, the problems that we normally face. The second question will be where we want to be. The third question is who is involved and why it matters and how we do it. But for today, we are going to be covering only the first three. That is where we are, where we want to be, and who is involved. And we're going to dig deep into tech, and we're going to understand for tech tailored for about tech tailored for Africa. How are we going to achieve this, and what do we mean by tech for Africa? I mean, we're already using a lot of tech products as we speak. How do we craft and have tech tailored for Africa, either as developers or even as enthusiasts or even as users? How do we make this come to a reality? So I'll move ahead and start with where we are. Okay, feel free to type your questions on the chat, and they can be responded to. We can also have a follow-up response doc after this, so that we can go back to that. So Africa, we have the youngest, we have the largest young population. Africa's population stands at over 1.5 billion as per 2024, with 849 million youth below 25 years old. This represents 60% of the population. This is the largest youth population globally. So it's a very big continent. We have a lot of young people, and 25 youth below 25 years old represent over 60%. But if we narrow down to the dynamics of one country that we live in, and that is Kenya, you'll find that Kenya has a youthful population of 70%. These are people under 35 years, making it an ideal place for tech adoption. And then why am I discussing about population? Remember, tech and the products that are being developed for tech is about the consumer base. So meaning that Africa has a large consumer base. For now, most of us have been using tech, and I would like us to focus on several sectors we have. We have, for example, education, we have agriculture, and we also have healthcare. And finally, we have industry and corporate. So other than social media, for example, what tech have we gotten to relate to or to even come across and use in the four industries that I mentioned? For example, in agriculture, we have agri-tech farm operations. Are the farmers in Kenya really using tech as effectively as they should? There's a lot of data in farms. I've visited some farms in Kenya, and I've realized that for the farms that do horticultural products, and they do a number of productivity, they have books and they kind of write it down on books. But how are we tailoring this data? How are we using the data that the farmers are generating in terms of analyzing it and coming and making it perform and make their operations effective? And then when we move to education, we have a lot of ed tech. Have the tech solutions in education be customized or crafted to match our local context? Have we started leveraging AI, for example, in education? When it comes to healthcare, have we interacted with telemedicine? When it comes to industry and corporate, there are a lot of business operations that should be digitized. Are these people using locally crafted solutions, or are the most of these solutions being imported? And if they are not using the locally crafted solutions, why? And I've mentioned a lot of solutions. I've mentioned about tech products and solutions, and I would like us to ask ourselves, what do we mean by tech products? What are the main products that we have in tech? So I'm going to share a number of categories of tech products that we have in tech. The first one is tech services. Most of us have interacted with services. That is for streaming services, i.e. Spotify, Netflix, software as a service. We've used them. Platform as a service. Though not physical, they are considered products because they are packaged offerings. So this is the first, this is one of the tech products that we have. And then we have consumer products. Remember, I am mentioning about from a global view, what are the tech products that are already there, and some of which we know of, some of which are actually being crafted as we speak, but as at least the ones that I'm sharing here are already in operation. And consumer products, when we mention about tech, I mean, the first thing that you did when you wanted to interact with tech is to get a device. That's a mobile phone, a laptop, or an accessory for gaming. So these are the consumer products. They're designed for everyday use by individuals, often for communication, entertainment, or convenience. I mean, you use them for several reasons. And then we have software products. So most of us have interacted with operating systems. If you're using your laptop or you're using your mobile phone, there's a lot of operating systems that there's a lot of softwares that we get to interact with, even operating systems. And apps, when you're moving from point A to point B, there's a number of apps that you get to use, or whatever you want to work on with your computer. You of course have interacted with softwares. So these are applications and platforms used for productivity, entertainment, management, and more. So anything running in your device is a software. Anything you're using on your computer or your mobile phone is a software. And then we have hardware products. These are physical devices offering often serving as infrastructure. And then we have smart home technology. We have industrial and enterprise tech. These are tech products used in business, factories, healthcare, other industry. And we have emerging technology products, newer categories pushing the boundaries of technology. That's where we have a quantum products. We have AI, robotics, and all that. It's in the emerging technology products there. But moving to number 2, where do we want to be? I've gone through all the number of products that I've mentioned. These are available globally as softwares, hardwares, and all the solutions that are being crafted out there. But as a continent, where do we want to be? Maybe I can just delve into some of the metrics that I would like to share today. So only around 14% of companies across sub-Saharan Africa are currently making use of the cloud, but this is likely to increase by 3/5 by 2030, creating $32 billion extra in additional economic value for the economy. So speaking of the companies that we are already having in Africa, they're already adopting to some technologies like cloud computing. And speaking of internet adoption, it's also rising. In the next few years, Sub-Saharan Africa is set to pass an important milestone. For the first time, more than half the population will be online. So internet penetration is happening, and there is a lot of mobile device access also. A larger population has access to mobile phones compared to before. And these are the two metrics that I decided to point out in the talk today. We get to check how are our adoption standards or rates as per now. In terms of infrastructure, I'm sure we have internet penetration in rising in Africa. We have mobile device access in the few years that we've been having. And I would like us to think of solutions created by Africans for Africans. If you're in Kenya, solutions created by Kenyans for Kenyans, solutions created by people living in Uganda for Uganda, because one thing that I understand is that we face a lot of problems in local context, but most of these problems that we are facing might have digital solutions for them. But most of the digital solutions that we use are not like locally crafted, so they lack some context in it, and we don't get to synchronize with the local cultures, language, dialects, and even how our behaviors as users come to be. So Africa's massive consumer market deserves tech built for us by us. How many homegrown apps or platforms do you use today? And I would like to engage you guys a bit, and I believe most of us have a number of apps installed in our phones. How many of those applications are locally crafted? If you check your phone, for example, you have a lot of apps from Google, Microsoft, and all those other major producers that do the apps. But how many apps do we have that are addressing our local challenges, or what technology do we get to interact with from one? If you have one, you can just type it and place it in the chat so that it can be pointed out later. But I believe that 99% of the apps we have on our devices are not locally crafted, and we've not yet embraced enough using locally made tech. But why is this the reason? So what if we designed our own solutions rooted in our culture, in our needs and realities, and captured this opportunity? Imagine a future where Africans proudly embrace technology crafted right here. I started by pointing out the large consumer base that we have, the large youth population that we have, I started by pointing all that out. And if we are to craft solutions by Africans for Africans, there's two people involved. We have the users and we have the people crafting these. How do we make this a reality? How do you move from having your app, your mobile device or your laptop being 99% populated by externally made apps and not tapping into our very own talents? So I believe I've mentioned 7 areas that we have. I've mentioned hardware. I've mentioned large scale products. I've mentioned softwares. I've mentioned tech services. But some of these services, some of these products, I'm sure when it comes to building consumer products and accessories, we need a lot of resources as a continent. We need a lot of infrastructure. But for now, what can we focus on with what we have? At least I believe we can build tech services and we can also build software applications. So by tech services, for example, they are not physical, yes, as I mentioned before. They are considered products because they are packaged offerings. We can build platform as a service. Maybe on a later discussion, we might expound what platform as a service is. Infrastructure as a service can be built. But we are familiar with software as a service. These are softwares that can be packaged as services and people can get to subscribe to specific sections of what is needed. And of course, streaming services. So everything to do with softwares, anything that you'll just need your device and internet and a skill to code, we can focus on that. And then software apps, of course, building mobile applications, building enterprise softwares for our local industries. I mentioned 4 industries at the beginning. I mentioned education, agriculture, healthcare, industry or corporate. How can we work to digitize most of the industries that we have in corporate? And if you look at the local context that we are having, of course, you see we have shops, a lot of shops in the remote places. We have farms, a lot of farms. And how can we create and craft solutions to digitize this all these areas? For example, point of sale systems. Are they locally crafted, or do we have to force ourselves to use them? Can we like create something that matches the local context? For that farmer who is using a book to digitize their produce of cabbages and milk, how can they go digital? That's a consumer, because if you capture, for example, a number or a great population of farmers and you craft a local solution that they can relate to, the guys who are in the remote places who are not who are not really conversant with English, can we create apps that really relate to their local dialect and that they can relate to? So that's what we can focus on when it comes to software apps. Web applications, of course, just applications that run on the web. And who is involved? That's the third thing that the third question that we shall be asking today. Who is involved in crafting these solutions, and okay, of course, how we do it and why it matters is a question that we are going to answer later. But who is involved in building the local applications that we are talking about? Who is involved in creating these solutions for us? So we have a number of key stakeholders. They might be more than these, but I decided to narrow down to the 5. That is, there are different types of key stakeholders. Mainly, we have developers and software engineers. I believe some of us maybe in the call today might not be developers or software engineers, but I'll come to the other part later. But starting with developers and software engineers, speaking of the of the building itself, or of the tools that we use, how do we leverage our skills to build softwares or solutions that can relate to the local users? How do we bring it down to a local context of how this should work? Number 2, we have tech enthusiasts. These are people who are not really in the development part or the production part of it, but they really support and follow on what is happening in tech. And then number 3, we have product owners and startup founders. Most of the people we have in our country or in our continent have business ideas that end up becoming startups, and they get to own products. But how do we tailor these products to match our local context, to match our consumer base? And then we have researchers and academics. These are people who are learning, and they are in academic institutions, and they are coming up with a lot of research on specific areas. So these are the key stakeholders. Of course, I'll come back and also mentioned the contributions that every key stakeholder shall be performing. And finally, we have policymakers. The government falls in there too. What should be their contribution in making this happen? So these are the people that I managed to narrow down to, or as our key stakeholders. And let me go back to number 1 for developers and software engineers. Most of the developers, we have really skilled developers, but we need to understand, how do we get to have how do we get to use our skills as developers or engineers to solve local problems? How do we get to become empathetic with the challenges that we are facing as a local market? And I'll give an example, for example, for how what we find here locally that is not actually out there. For example, our addressing system. I like using these a lot. It's very hard for us in African countries to get to understand the actual address where you live in. For example, if I ask you, where do you live? It's very hard for you to come up with the actual address, street number, and house number. And that is what is actually happening. So if you're creating an app for delivery, if you want to create a solution for delivery, it won't work the same way with a solution in the West. Because a solution in the West, if you're delivering to a certain location, there's an addressing system. I know where the street that you live in, I know the house number, so the package is surely going to get to that destination. And when you come to Africa, that's different. But there is something that we have in Africa, for example, the boda guys that get to all the remote places. How can we leverage, for example, a delivery solution that works in local context? How can you use the boda penetration in Kenya, for example, to ensure that we solve the delivery problem? Number 2, we need to also check on the culture that we have. For example, it's a Kenyan thing to, you can see most of the time when you're traveling, you will see packages with people's contacts on them. This should be delivered to 07 so and so, straight to that. And then the drivers are the guys who get to call. Maybe you might think that, oh, if I create a delivery app and position it separately and let the people just log into the platform and do the deliveries, you might think of it as a good idea. But what if you need to use the drivers and create a solution for the drivers to have you make the app users to be the actual drivers who do the day-to-day deliveries? Because at the end of the day, tech should not be something that you force people to. It needs to be something that gets to bring efficiency. And there's a number of success stories that we normally have. For example, mobile transfer, and it was there before. When we talk about communication, for example, messaging, people are communicating. And I'll give a very good example, for example, for IG, the email or the mailing platforms we have. People used to send emails via the post offices. They used to, the word email was not there. It used to be mails. People used to write mails through the post office. So when the digital solution for mails came in, even if you look at your apps that you use for mailing, you'll see that they have been designed in a way that they mimic what was actually happening. I mean, the envelope that you used to use when you're doing the mails, sending, receiving, used to do the addresses on the mails. So that was digitized. But it was not a new thing that was introduced by the technology, but the technology was crafted to make it efficient. Same case when we mention money transfer. So money transfer was there. People were transferring money through maybe bank transactions or even sending money manually. But when mobile transfer came in, it made the process more efficient. And when you're crafting any solution, for example, for the key stakeholders, we also have the users of the system. We call, we can add them at number 6, the users of the system. We have to empathize with the users and understand what do they really need. If you're creating an app for the Mama Mboga to use, if you're creating an app for the Boda Boda guy to use, if you are creating an app for a corporate institution or for a company somewhere to use, you need to understand from the user's context point of view, what do they need and what challenges do they face most of the time. So that is something that we should really focus on when talking about key stakeholders. And when we revisit the 3 questions that we had, that is where we are, where we want to be, and uh, who are involved. And we have 5 questions in total. Today we'll be covering the 3 questions. And then on the next weekend, we are going to dig deeper in why it matters and how to do it, because we will need a lot of context in, to dig deep in a lot of context in how to do it and why that matters. And we will require a lot of time in expounding that. But today I want us to familiarize ourselves with where we are, where we want to be, and who are involved. For example, where we are, Africa today is home to over 1 billion people. And why I keep going back to that point is there's a lot of consumers. The consumer base in the continent is big, and the young population is also very big. And if you check the demographics that we have today, even on social media apps, for example, we have the Twitter, TikToks, Instagrams, and all these applications that we use on social media. Most of them have been crafted out there, but we get to have a lot of people using them, even as consumers, even in the continent. And we have a vibrant ecosystem of software developers, hardware engineers, we have creative entrepreneurs, and there are challenges that we normally have. I mean, challenges to do with skills. For example, why are most of the engineers, why are most of the people not actually crafting the solutions that we are talking about? It might be a skill gap, and that is why we are here today. And that's why we are organizing such series as the one that you can see, so that we can actually get to capacity build people also on various aspects of tech, on how to go around a number of things. So where we want to be is like forward thinking, or we come up with a vision that our goal is in the future is where technology is designed with local communities, not for them. These should be solutions that speak local languages, they work offline, and run on basic devices. And speaking of offline, some of the remote places might not have good internet connectivity. So how do you craft a solution for them that works even in low network bandwidth? And then, of course, we need to also tackle problems that we're experiencing as a continent or as a region in agriculture, in healthcare, in education, and in finance, and industry with which is culturally tuned, because we have our cultures. There is things that we relate to, and are the applications and are the apps that we get to relate to, are they really matching this cultural context? Of course, we need to also be building platforms. If you imagine a situation where we have a lot of applications, of course, or solutions that we're building, we need infrastructural support on that. And that's where services such as infrastructure as a service comes in, platform as a service comes in, and we are able to create a whole economy on that. So those are the 3 questions that I really had for us today. If you also have some questions that you can ask, I might respond to some of them. Feel free to type them in the chat. And I believe moving forward, we are going to craft a better way forward on how to build tech solutions tailored for Africa. I would also like to mention that this is our first webinar where we wanted to introduce the problem statement, and we also wanted to introduce why we are doing this, and the context of all of this. And in the following one, of course, we are going to dig deep in the topic today, tech tailored for Africa. We're going to concentrate on what matters, how to do it. We're going to dig deep on some of the things and areas that are overlooked when it comes to building solutions. And we're going to cite examples of some of the solutions that have been built perfectly, and they did fit the industry well. And most of the challenges that we normally face, it's time to now stand and act towards creating solutions. And not let's stop discussing a lot on the challenges and actually do something with what we have for now. Speaking of population and consumer base, we already have that. In terms of skill, we can craft programs that get to capacity build the young population that we have, so that they can leverage the resources that we already have to build solutions for us. So for now, thank you for joining in. Thank you for taking your time to be part of this discussion. Ensure you type your questions down for us if you have any question, so that I can respond to some. And also, we have a channel. I'll be sharing all these resources that we come across. And if you have any suggestions of what you feel like should be covered or should be shared on the following sessions, feel free to highlight it, and we shall delve deep into that. Thank you. It's been great having you today. Yeah, back to you, Max.
Thank you, Kiongozi, for that good presentation on what's really happening on the continent. I think that has been well highlighted, just from the scratch of like the potential that we have as a continent in terms of the population, in terms of the weight and the scale, and the abilities that we can actually use to literally convert the continent to a solution, not just talking about problems. And therefore, just as a quick reminder that you can keep your questions coming. That's number one. Number two, I know you know a friend. You know a friend that is just next door who has not logged in, right? You can bring him on board as well, so that he also partakes from this adventurous journey that we want to take from that we just started today. Then lastly, reminder we have also that next week we at the same time we continue breaking down why we are really here. And just to say some few words as we get to closing remarks, is that we don't want to view this as another class. We don't want to view this as another, sitting down session to literally, just learn. But what we want to try and picture is how can we view now the world as how can we view ourselves as the solution to what's really happening outside there. We have a million problems that we really have to solve. And this time around, I believe that with our population, how Kiongozi has addressed it, that we have the opportunity and the chance to actually also take part in decision making, take part in building, not only consumption, take part in making those policies and building those tools that actually are for Africa now by us Africans. So in case of anything, drop a question, give us a feedback. What do you feel? What do you think? What do you expect us to cover? And then we shall keep in touch in our communities. So feel free. Maybe we can take some few questions before actually we close down, or comments or feedback. Anyone who has a comment or a feedback, I think we can give you some few minutes to literally share one.